The restaurant called the Golden Pearl was one of the most expensive places in the city. Rich businessmen, celebrities, and famous politicians often came there to eat. The lights were soft and golden, the tables were covered with white cloth, and soft music played in the background. Waiters moved politely from one table to another, smiling and serving food, as if everything inside the restaurant was perfect. But that evening, something unusual was about to happen. Something that would make this normal night unforgettable for everyone present. Mr. Grant, a well-known millionaire businessman, walked into the restaurant with his usual proud and confident steps. Anyone who knew him also knew that he loved showing off his money and power. He always talked loudly, tipped only when people watched him, and liked when others looked at him with respect or fear. Today, however, Mr. Grant was not happy. His face looked stiff, his eyes sharp, and the anger he carried inside him was easy for everyone to see. He sat at his favorite table near the center of the restaurant. He didn't need to ask for it. The staff already knew he wanted that spot because it allowed him to be seen by everyone. Mr. Grant liked to be the center of attention, almost like a king sitting on his throne. A young waitress named Maya came to his table with a polite smile. She greeted him kindly. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Golden Pearl. May I bring you something to drink?" Her voice was soft and respectful, just like the restaurant trained its staff to be. But Mr. Grant didn't reply with kindness. Instead, he waved his hand in the air as if she didn't matter. "Just bring the usual," he said with a heavy, tired sigh. Maya nodded gently and went to get his order. Even then, she could sense something was troubling him. It wasn't normal for Mr. Grant to sound this defeated. He was the type of man who acted like he controlled the world. As the minutes passed, two men dressed in business suits joined Mr. Grant at the table. From the way they spoke, it was clear they had just returned from a business trip with him. Their voices were not as loud as his, but the frustration in their words showed. They were all upset. Mr. Grant hit the table lightly with his hand and spoke so loudly that nearby tables could hear him. This deal in China was a disaster, he complained, all because of stupid language problems. Can you believe it? A deal worth millions failed, because none of those foolish employees could speak proper Chinese. Not one. People around the restaurant turned their heads. Some pretended they weren't listening, but they were. Mr. Grant went on, getting louder and more annoyed. "I swear if someone here can speak Chinese, I'll give them $100,000. I'm serious." He wasn't joking, but his voice sounded like he was trying to show off as usual. A few people nearby laughed. Some whispered to each other that he was just angry and showing his ego again. The idea of someone in the restaurant speaking Chinese seemed funny to them. Most guests were either wealthy business owners or office workers celebrating big deals. No one believed such a strange challenge would be taken seriously. It sounded like one of those big empty promises rich people make to get attention. At the far end of the restaurant, Maya stood still for a moment, holding the tray she was carrying. She heard every word. Her eyes slowly lifted from the floor to look at Mr. Grant. Her expression was not shocked, not amused, not scared. It was something different. It was as if the words had touched a part of her that no one in the room knew existed. For a single second, her face changed, so slightly that most people would miss it. But if anyone had been watching closely, they would have seen a spark in her eyes. A spark of confidence, a spark that carried a secret. Maya went to the counter and placed the tray down. A fellow waitress named Sarah, who was also her friend, came to her side. She had noticed the look on Maya's face. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked quietly. "You look like you just remembered something." Maya shook her head with a small smile. "I'm fine," she answered. But the smile faded the moment she turned away. Something was happening inside her mind. Something no one around her could guess. The other customers continued joking after hearing Mr. Grant's loud promise. One man laughed and said, $100,000? For just speaking Chinese. That man must be joking. Another replied, "Even if someone knows Chinese, he won't pay. He only talks big." The businessmen sitting with Mr. Grant laughed too. One of them teased, "Maybe one of the waiters here can try. Who knows, maybe the cleaner knows Chinese." Mr. Grant grinned and looked around the restaurant in a mocking way, as if searching for someone foolish enough to attempt his challenge. It was clear he believed no one in that restaurant, especially not a simple employee, could speak such a difficult language. Maya stood quietly near the wall, pretending to focus on her work. But her mind was racing. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. For years she had stayed silent, working without drawing attention. She had never imagined that a night like this would come, a night where the world might finally see a side of her she kept hidden. Her heart beat faster, not out of fear, but because she knew something the others didn't. She knew she wasn't ordinary. She knew she had a gift, and for the first time she wondered if she should show it. The restaurant continued to buzz with laughter, mockery, and disbelief. Everyone treated the offer as a joke. Everyone except Maya, because for her this was not just a bet. This was a moment that could change everything. The golden pearl grew louder as more customers reacted to Mr. Grant's challenge. The sound of clinking glasses, laughter, and whispered conversations filled the air. But under that noise there was a thin line of tension running through the room, created by one arrogant promise and one silent listener who was trying to stay invisible. Maya continued serving other tables with her usual calm expression, but her ears kept catching pieces of conversation from Mr. Grant's table. Every time she passed by, she heard more jokes, more laughing, and more comments that made the staff uncomfortable. Some of the waiters rolled their eyes, some forced a polite smile, and some simply ignored it. But Maya, she listened. Mr. Grant leaned back in his chair with his expensive suit slightly opened. He had already started drinking, and the alcohol made his voice even louder. With a mocking smile, he said to his business partners, "Do you know what the funniest part is? People like these waiters and waitresses think they know everything just because they read something online or watch videos. But real knowledge, real success, that belongs to people like us." One of the men sitting with him laughed loudly. "Exactly. Look around. They don't even speak proper English. Chinese? Forget it. They should focus on learning how to hold a tray correctly." Maya walked by at that exact moment, holding a tray with coffee cups for another table. She heard every word. Her hand tightened around the tray for a second, but she didn't stop. She placed the coffee on another table with a gentle smile, as if those cruel words hadn't touched her. But inside her heart something stung, not because of the insult to her, but because of the insult to all hard-working people who were simply trying to earn an honest living. When she walked back toward the service area, one of the younger waiters, Ben, whispered, "I hate people like him. Rich and full of ego." Sarah nodded. "Ignore him, Maya. He always talks like this. Just smile and move on." Maya kept her expression neutral, but her eyes softened with a hint of sadness. "I know," she replied. "People judge what they see, not what they don't know." That sentence sat in the air like a mystery. Sarah looked at her confused. "What do you mean?" Maya shook her head gently and forced a small smile. "Nothing." "Don't worry." But Sarah felt there was something behind those words, something Maya had never shared. Meanwhile, Mr. Grant was not done embarrassing the staff. He lifted his glass and, with a sarcastic tone, called loudly across the restaurant, "Where is that waitress? The one with the quiet face? What's her name, Mia? Maya?" "Maya," corrected one of the waiters unwillingly. "Yes, Maya," Mr. Grant repeated, stretching her name as if it was something foreign or amusing. "Call her here. Maybe she wants to be rich today. Maybe she wants $100,000. A few customers chuckled. Some looked uncomfortable. Some turned their heads away, pretending not to hear. The manager, a man named Mr. Lewis, quickly walked to the table, trying to calm things down. "Sir, if there has been any inconvenience, I apologize," Mr. Lewis said with a controlled, customer service smile. Mr. Grant lifted an eyebrow. "Relax, Lewis, I'm just having a little fun. Your staff must learn to enjoy jokes." Mr. Lewis nodded politely, though his face clearly showed discomfort. He signaled at Maya to come to the table. She walked slowly toward them, knowing she had no choice. Her steps were calm, graceful, but her heart beat a little faster. Not from fear, but from the pressure of unnecessary attention. She reached the table and stood straight. "Yes, sir. How may I assist you?" Mr. Grant looked at her with a half smile, the kind of smile that didn't show kindness, only ego. He stared at her in a way that made it clear he had already judged her. "So, Maya," he said her name as if testing it, "do you want to try and speak Chinese? If you can, I'll give you $100,000. The restaurant fell silent again, just like earlier. A couple at a nearby table lowered their forks mid-air. A waiter froze with a jug of water in his hand. In just a few minutes, Maya had become the new center of attention, without even doing anything. Maya stayed calm. "I'm here to serve your food, sir." Not to join in a challenge, her polite refusal made the men laugh louder. "Of course," one of the businessmen said mockingly. "She can't even imagine that kind of money. Look at her. Speaking Chinese." He laughed loudly, clapping his hands once. Mr. Grant leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Come on, Maya, you don't want to try. You look like a smart girl, but I doubt you can even say hello in Chinese." The humiliation was direct now, not hidden behind jokes, not subtle, clear and sharp. But Maya did not break. She did not lose her smile. "It's not my place to entertain customers with languages," she answered with dignity. Her calmness annoyed Mr. Grant because he expected her to be nervous, embarrassed, or scared. Someone staying strong under his mockery felt like a personal insult to his ego. He lifted the glass and drank again, then said loudly enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "You see? That's the thing about people who work in small jobs. They don't dare try. They don't have big dreams. They stay small because they think small." This time the room didn't laugh. Some customers' smiles faded. A few looked at Maya with sympathy. Others stared at Mr. Grant with judgment. Maya lowered her eyes for a moment, not out of shame, but to hide the rising fire inside her. She inhaled deeply, then slowly looked up again. There was something different in her eyes now. A calm power. A quiet strength, she said softly. "Sometimes people stay silent not because they are small, but because they are thinking." Mr. Grant raised an eyebrow, confused. "Thinking? About what?" Maya looked directly into his eyes for the first time that night. "About whether the moment is worth speaking." The room grew still. Even Mr. Grant didn't know how to respond for a second. Her gentle yet firm words had challenged his ego without disrespect, and for the first time, a small crack appeared in his confidence. The night was not going to end the way he expected, because Maya was no ordinary waitress, and fate had just pushed her one step closer to revealing it. After Maya's calm and thoughtful reply, the restaurant remained strangely quiet. It was the kind of silence that happens when someone speaks a truth that touches everyone. A few customers looked at her with new respect, and even the waiters exchanged surprised glances. The manager, Mr. Lewis, felt relieved that Maya handled the situation with dignity, but he also sensed that the situation was far from over. Something about the air felt different, as if something important was about to happen. Maya returned to the service station, trying to continue her work as if nothing unusual had happened. But inside her heart, emotions were moving like waves, some soft, some strong, some painful, some hopeful. She had worked hard for years to stay unnoticed, to keep her life simple and private. Yet tonight, the world seemed determined to pull her into the light. Sarah followed her quietly and touched her arm gently. "Hey, that was brave," she said. "No one talks to Mr. Grant like that." Maya smiled a little, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "It wasn't bravery, Sarah, it was just a truth he needed to hear." Sarah watched her closely. "Still, most of us would have stayed silent. You said something that made him stop talking." "That's not small." Maya looked down at the tray she was wiping, her fingers moving slowly. "Sometimes silence protects you, but sometimes silence lets others crush you. Tonight I didn't want silence to do that." Sarah's eyes softened. She had worked with Maya for almost a year, and though Maya was kind to everyone, helpful, calm, and respected, she never shared much about her personal life. She was like a locked book. People saw the cover but had no idea what stories lived inside. "Maya," Sarah said carefully, "you know you can talk to me, right? I mean if something is bothering you." Maya paused for a moment. The lights of the restaurant reflected softly in her eyes. "I know," she whispered, "but some stories are not easy to tell." Before Sarah could reply, a group of customers called for assistance, and Maya gently excused herself and walked away. As she moved between tables, taking orders and serving food, her mind drifted into thoughts she usually kept buried deep inside. She remembered her life before joining this restaurant. She remembered a different world, a world filled with books, learning, hopes, and dreams. There was a time when Maya was a top student at a well-known university. She wasn't rich, but she had earned scholarships because of her academic talent. She loved studying languages, cultures, and communication. While most people struggled to learn one foreign language, Maya understood them like they were music. Each language felt like a new melody she could play. Her teachers admired her and often said she had a gift, but life doesn't always respect talent. Sometimes life tests it. She remembered her mother, a gentle, smiling woman with tired eyes but a strong heart. Her mother used to work long hours to support Maya's studies, always telling her, "Knowledge will open doors no key can open. Learn, my child. Learn as much as you can," Maya did. She studied day and night, believing she would build a better future for herself and her mother. But one phone call changed everything. Her mother fell seriously ill, and the medical bills began to grow like mountains. Maya tried to study and work part-time, but soon it became too much. She had to make a choice, continue her education or save her mother's life. She chose her mother. She left university, promising herself that she would return one day. She took any job she could find, cleaning, cashier work, babysitting, and finally became a waitress at the Golden Pearl because the salary and tips were better. It wasn't her dream, but it paid for her mother's medicines and treatments. She never complained. She believed that sacrifice made with love is never a loss, but she also promised herself one thing: she would never forget her knowledge. Every night she studied alone, reading books, watching videos, practicing languages in her room when the world slept. She refused to let her gift die, and yet she never told anyone, because she feared someone would laugh at her, doubt her, or think she was showing off. She wanted respect, not attention. Back in the present, Maya placed a plate of food on a customer's table when she felt someone watching her. She looked up and saw Mr. Grant staring at her from across the restaurant. His expression was different now, not just amused but curious, almost suspicious. A few minutes later, he raised his hand and signaled for her again. Maya quietly walked to him. She kept her posture straight, her face calm. "Yes, sir?" she said politely. Mr. Grant looked at her as if trying to read her mind. "Tell me something, Maya. Why did you say that moment may not be worth speaking? Do you actually believe you can speak Chinese?" His questioning voice spread across the tables nearby, and again people leaned in to listen. But Maya did not answer immediately. She looked at him, then at the money he had placed earlier on the table, and then back at him. "I believe words have value," she replied softly. "And I don't use valuable words to entertain people who don't value others." A few customers nodded quietly. Someone whispered, "She's right." Mr. Grant disliked losing control of attention. He leaned forward. "You're being clever with words, but that won't win you anything. If you know something, prove it. If not, don't pretend to be smart." Maya's calm eyes held his gaze. "Not everything needs to be proved on demand," Mr. Grant smirked. "Or maybe you're scared." This time the insult hit deeper, not just to Maya, but to anyone who had ever been judged for their job, clothes, or status. Maya took a quiet breath. She still didn't react with anger. But something inside her shifted, not fear, not pride, strength. She looked at Mr. Grant slowly, her voice gentle but firm. Sometimes people wait for the right moment to speak, because when they finally do, their words can change everything. And unknowingly, she had just predicted what was coming, because the right moment was getting closer with every second, and soon the whole restaurant would witness it. The tension inside the Golden Pearl felt heavier with each passing minute. People were no longer focused on their meals. Their eyes kept drifting toward Mr. Grant's table, where the strange challenge had begun. The air was thick with curiosity, discomfort, and a small spark of excitement, because everyone sensed that something unusual was building. Maya tried returning to her normal work, but it had become impossible. Wherever she went, she felt eyes following her. Some held sympathy, some held interest, and some held doubt. She could hear soft whispers behind her as she walked by tables. "Do you think she can speak Chinese?" "No way, she's just a waitress. But the way she talks, she's different." "Maybe she's bluffing." Maya kept her head low. But her heart knew one thing. The room no longer saw her as invisible. Mr. Grant, on the other hand, felt the attention returning to him, and his ego rose again. He hated being challenged, especially by someone he considered beneath him. He tapped his fingers on the table impatiently, his voice sharp as he said to his friends, "People like her talk big to sound wise. She won't dare to try. Watch." His friends nodded, enjoying the show. Mr. Lewis, the manager, approached Mr. Grant. His face was tight with worry. "Sir, I kindly request we end this challenge. It is making the environment uncomfortable for other guests." Mr. Grant waved him away with a cold smile. Relax, Lewis, your staff is safe. I'm just trying to encourage them to dream big. His tone clearly showed he meant the opposite. Mr. Lewis looked at Maya from across the room. He saw a storm brewing, one he could not stop. After serving a table, Maya walked back toward the kitchen. Ben, the young waiter, stopped her beside the service counter. "You don't have to do this," he whispered urgently. "He's just trying to embarrass you more." Maya looked at him with gratitude. "I know, so stay quiet." "Don't give him a chance," he insisted. Maya smiled gently. "Silence has its place. But there is a difference between silence for peace and silence for fear." Ben frowned, confused. "Which one is this?" Maya did not answer directly. "I think tonight is a test. Not just for me, but for this whole room." Ben blinked. "A test of what?" "Of respect," Maya said softly, then walked away. Her steps were calm, but her mind was preparing. She didn't want to speak just to prove something. If she spoke, it needed to mean something. It needed to change something, not just entertain a rich man with money to burn. Moments later, Mr. Grant stood up suddenly, glass in hand, and raised his voice across the restaurant. "Ladies and gentlemen, since our lovely waitress seems to think I won't keep my promise, let's make this interesting for everyone." The restaurant fell silent again. All eyes turned to him. He placed a thick envelope on his table. The envelope made a soft thud sound that echoed loudly because of the silence. Inside was money, everyone could tell. "This," he announced proudly, "contains $100,000, cash right here. If Miss Maya says one sentence of fluent Chinese, this belongs to her." A wave of shock moved through the room. People exchanged surprised looks. Even the workers paused. Seeing the physical proof of the money made everything real. It was no longer just a joke or a loud promise. It was a life-changing opportunity sitting right on the table. Sarah whispered with her hand over her mouth. "Oh my God, that's real," one customer whispered. "If she can speak, she'll be rich in seconds," another murmured. "If she fails, she'll be humiliated forever." The pressure rose like boiling water. Maya stood still for a moment, her eyes fixed on the envelope. She wasn't thinking about the money. She was thinking about her mother, her dreams, her sacrifices, and the years she stayed silent while her heart carried a hidden light. Mr. Grant smirked. "Come on, Maya, speak. Say one sentence, just one. Or admit you were talking nonsense earlier." Maya walked slowly toward his table. The room watched each of her steps like they were watching a movie. Even the music in the background seemed to fade, as if the restaurant itself wanted to hear what would happen next. When she reached the table, Mr. Grant pulled out a chair. "Sit," he said with a mocking politeness. "Show us your talent." Maya didn't sit. She remained standing. That small act showed confidence. Her calm presence made Mr. Grant's arrogance look smaller. "I don't need a seat to answer a challenge," she said softly. Some people smiled. Her composure impressed them. Mr. Grant leaned back. "Very well, speak." The room held its breath, but Maya didn't speak immediately. She looked around, at the waiters who worked long hours for small salaries, at customers who believed rich people deserved respect, automatically, and at those who silently suffered judgment in their daily lives. She then looked at Mr. Grant and said, "Sir, before I speak, I want to ask you a question." Mr. Grant raised his eyebrows. "A question? About what?" "If I speak fluent Chinese, what will it change for you?" she asked. Mr. Grant laughed. "It will change your life, not mine." Maya shook her head gently. "Money can change situations, but respect changes people." A few customers nodded thoughtfully. Her words had weight. Mr. Grant stiffened. "Are you suggesting I lack respect?" Maya didn't break eye contact. "I'm suggesting that respect should be given before judgment, not after." The tension sharpened. Mr. Grant frowned and pointed at the envelope. "Stop wasting everyone's time. Speak Chinese or walk away. Simple." Maya inhaled slowly. Her decision was made. She would speak, but not to win money, not to prove her worth to a man who judged her. She would speak because sometimes silence must be broken. So the world learns a lesson. She stepped forward slightly, looked at the envelope once more, then raised her eyes to meet his again. "Very well," she said softly. "If this is the moment that must change something, then I will speak." The room leaned in. Hearts beat faster. The reveal was seconds away. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath as Maya stood there ready to speak. Even the air felt still, like the world paused for this one moment. The Golden Pearl, usually filled with soft music and gentle conversation, had turned into a silent stage, and Maya was now at the center of it. Maya slowly placed her hands in front of her, her back straight, her expression calm. She wasn't nervous anymore. She wasn't afraid. Something inside her had settled, a peaceful strength that made her look taller than she was. Mr. Grant crossed his arms and smirked. "Well, we're all waiting." Maya sighed softly, not out of fear, but out of understanding that what she was about to do would change how everyone saw her forever. She lifted her chin slightly and spoke her first words, her voice clear and confident. "Nin hao, hien gaoxing renshi dajia." The Chinese words flowed out of her mouth smoothly, beautifully, and with perfect pronunciation. The sound was gentle but powerful, like a melody everyone suddenly wanted to hear more of. A gasp spread through the restaurant. Several customers stared with wide eyes. One woman covered her mouth with her hand. Someone dropped a fork and it hit a plate with a sharp ring. Maya continued, her tone respectful and fluent. "Wo xiangshuo, huyan shi lianjie renshen de qiaoliang." Language is a bridge that connects hearts. Her voice seemed to fill the entire room. Even people who didn't understand Chinese felt the weight and beauty of her words. It didn't sound like she memorized a sentence. It sounded like someone who understood the language deeply, like someone who lived it. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. The shock was too heavy. Then suddenly a man near the back whispered, "That's real Chinese." And it was perfect. A woman nodded with excitement. Not just perfect, that was fluent. Like a native. More whispers spread, louder now. "She really knows it. Oh my God, she wasn't bluffing. She sounds like a professional interpreter." Mr. Grant's smirk slowly faded. His eyes stretched wider, and the confidence he wore like a crown slipped away. His face went pale and his mouth opened slightly, but he couldn't speak. The man who thought he knew everything now knew nothing about the girl standing before him. Maya wasn't done. She spoke again, but this time, not in Chinese. She switched to French, her voice smooth like silk. "Le respect ne dépend pas de la richesse, mais du cœur." Respect does not depend on money, but on the heart. Gasps turned into stunned silence. Then she shifted to Spanish, her voice warm and musical. "Nunca subestimes a alguien por su trabajo. Todos tienen una historia que no conoces. Never underestimate someone because of their job. Everyone has a story you don't know." A waiter froze where he stood. A customer's eyes filled with tears. Some people leaned forward in their chairs as if pulled by invisible strings. But Maya wasn't finished. She continued, one language after another, each one flowing naturally. Beautifully, powerfully Arabic. "Al-ihtiram haqqun likul bashar." Respect? There's a right for every human. Korean. "사람을 외모나 직업으로 판단하지 마세요." Do not judge a person by their appearance or job. Japanese. "人の価値は地味ではなく、心で決まります." A person's value is not decided by status, but by their heart. German. Wahre Größe zeigt sich im Respekt, nicht im Reichtum. True greatness is shown through respect, not money. Italian. La dignità non ha prezzo. Dignity has no price. Portuguese. Nunca trate alguém como se fosse menos que você. Never treat someone as if they are less than you. 9 languages, 9 perfect transitions, 9 messages that hit the heart. Tears fell. Goosebumps rose, and not a single soul in the restaurant could look at Maya the same way anymore. By the time she returned to English, many customers were already standing in silent admiration. Maya looked directly at Mr. Grant, her voice soft but filled with truth. Languages are not just words. They carry culture, history, understanding, and respect. You asked for entertainment, sir, but I speak to connect, not to impress. Her final words landed like a gentle strike, powerful without shouting, clear without anger. The room exploded into applause, not polite claps, not forced appreciation, a real standing ovation. Some clapped with excitement, some with pride, some with tears in their eyes. The entire restaurant stood, except Mr. Grant, who remained frozen in his chair, unable to believe what had just happened. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the most powerful person in the room. Maya was. Sarah rushed forward and hugged Maya tightly. "I knew you were special," she whispered with a trembling voice. But this is beyond anything. Ben blinked rapidly, amazed. 9 languages? Maya, who are you? Maya smiled gently. Just someone who believes knowledge should never be hidden, only shared. Her answer wasn't loud, but everyone heard it. Mr. Grant stared at her, speechless. The envelope full of money sat in front of him, cold, meaningless, small. Compared to the greatness he had just witnessed, the room waited to see what he would do, because the money was no longer the center of this story. She was. For a long moment, the restaurant continued to applaud, but slowly the clapping softened. People sat down again, still staring at Maya with admiration shining in their eyes. Some whispered to each other, others simply watched her, replaying the magical moment in their minds. But the only person who still hadn't moved was Mr. Grant. He sat stiff in his chair, breathing unevenly. His expensive suit, his gold watch, the money on the table, none of it made him look powerful anymore. Instead, he looked small, unsure, and deeply shaken. His eyes remained fixed on Maya, as if trying to understand how a waitress had broken everything he thought he knew about people. Sarah stepped closer to Maya and gently touched her arm. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Maya nodded with a calm smile. "Yes, for the first time I truly am." The manager of the restaurant, Mr. Lewis, approached with slow steps. He was a middle-aged man with a kind face, though usually serious during work hours. But now his eyes shined with emotion. "Maya," he said in a warm voice, "all these months you worked here, I never knew you had this talent. Why didn't you tell anyone?" Maya lowered her eyes for a second. "I didn't want to show off. I just wanted a peaceful life." The crowd listened quietly. Everyone wanted to know more. Mr. Grant finally moved. He cleared his throat, but his voice came out low and weak. You speak 9 languages," he said slowly, still struggling. "How? Why are you working here as a waitress?" The question wasn't rude this time. It wasn't asked with pride or mockery. It came from confusion and a little pain. For the first time, he truly wanted to understand. Maya took a seat at a nearby empty table, and after a moment of hesitation, she began to speak. Her voice was soft, but carried a story that held the entire room silently still. "I was born into a poor family," she began. "We didn't have much money, but my parents always told me that education was the only thing that could change my future. My father worked 2 jobs, and my mother tutored children in our neighborhood. They gave up their own dreams so I could follow mine." Her eyes warmed as she remembered them. "When I was young, I fell in love with languages. To me, every new language felt like a new world, a new way to think, a new way to understand people. I studied whenever I could, at school, in libraries, online, even from tourists who visited our town. People listened with respect, some leaning forward, unable to stop themselves. When I turned 18, I received a scholarship to study international linguistics overseas. It was the happiest day of my life. And my parents too." She paused, her smile fading slowly. "But 1 week before I left, my mother fell seriously ill. We did everything we could, but treatment was expensive. My father sold our home and we moved into a small apartment. I rejected my scholarship so I could stay and help them." Whispers of sympathy floated across the room. "I worked whatever jobs I could find to pay the medical bills. I taught languages online, I translated documents, I worked as a hotel receptionist, and now I work here. The Golden Pearl has been my safe place." She looked up at her co-workers, gratitude shining in her eyes. "They treated me like family when I needed it most." Sarah covered her mouth, holding back tears. Ben wiped his eyes secretly so no one would see. Maya continued softly. "My mother passed away 2 years ago. My father still works, but I am saving money so I can go back to studying one day. I want to become a language teacher or interpreter. I want to help young people who don't believe they are smart enough." Silence wrapped around the room like a blanket. Even the background music had been turned off long ago. All they could hear now was Maya's heart. Mr. Grant's eyes turned glossy. He swallowed hard. When he spoke, his voice shook slightly. "Maya, I'm sorry. The apology surprised everyone. A rich man like him rarely apologized, especially in public." He stood up slowly, his hands trembling a little. "I judged you," he admitted. "I assumed things about you because of your job. I used my money to feel powerful, but tonight you showed me something I forgot long ago, that true value does not come from wealth, but from character." He took a step closer. his voice heavier with emotion. "I'm ashamed of how I spoke to you. You deserved respect from the moment you walked to my table. Not because you speak 9 languages, but because you are a human being." Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. A customer clapped softly in support. Mr. Grant looked at the envelope filled with money. He picked it up and placed it gently on the table in front of Maya. "You won this fairly, and I hope you accept it. Not as a prize, but as a small push toward the future you deserve." Maya stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. Her eyes lifted slowly to meet his. "Thank you," she said politely, "but the money was never my goal. I spoke because disrespect should not be answered with silence." Her words struck deeper than any anger ever could, but then she added with a warm smile, "Still, I will accept it, not for myself, but to help others learn. I will use this money to start something that spreads knowledge, just like my parents taught me." Soft sobbing could be heard somewhere in the room. Mr. Grant nodded, relief filling his face. "If you ever start that dream, I would like to help." The same man who once laughed now bowed his head with genuine respect. In that moment, something changed inside the restaurant. It wasn't just about a bet anymore. It became a lesson, a reminder that you never truly know someone's story until you listen. And for the first time in his life, Mr. Grant felt lighter, not because he lost money, but because he found something far more valuable: humility. The night at the Golden Pearl was slowly coming to an end, but no one wanted to leave. People sat at their tables, still talking about what they had witnessed. It felt like they had been part of something rare, something that would stay in their hearts forever. Even the waiters, who were usually rushing around cleaning at closing time, moved more gently, as if they didn't want to disturb the magic that still floated in the air. Maya remained seated, quiet and thoughtful. The envelope of money rested in her hands, not as a prize but as a promise. She ran her fingers across it, feeling its weight, less the weight of cash, more the weight of responsibility. She knew this money could change not just her life, but the lives of others too. Mr. Grant had taken his seat again, calmer now, more human. He watched Maya, not with pride or ego this time, but with deep respect. He no longer saw a waitress. He saw a woman with strength, intelligence, and a heart much richer than his bank account. Mr. Lewis, the manager, cleared his throat. "Everyone," he said gently, "we will be closing the restaurant soon. But before we do, I want to say something." The crowd turned to him. He looked at Maya with admiration. "I hired Maya because she was polite, hardworking, and kind. I did not know about her talent for languages, but I did not need to. Her character was enough. Tonight she reminded us all that kindness and respect are the true signs of greatness." People nodded. Many clapped. Mr. Lewis continued, "Maya, if you ever decide to leave this job to follow your dream, I will support you with all my heart. But until that day, I will be proud to have you here as part of our family." Maya smiled, touched by his words. "Thank you," she replied softly. "This place has been my home when I needed one the most. I will never forget that." One by one, customers approached Maya before leaving. Some shook her hand, some hugged her, some simply thanked her for inspiring them. A young teenage girl walked up shyly and asked, "Can you teach me a few words in Chinese someday?" Maya's face lit up. "Of course," she said warmly. "I would be happy to." After the last customer walked out, the restaurant grew quiet. Only Mr. Grant, Maya, Sarah, Ben, and Mr. Lewis remained. They stood near the entrance, ready to say goodbye. Mr. Grant stepped forward. He took a deep breath before speaking. "Maya, may I ask for one more chance? Not to challenge you again, but to help you." His voice was steady, sincere. "If you allow me, I want to fund your education, fully. You should not have to pause your dreams any longer." Maya looked at him, surprised. This was not the arrogant man they had met at the start of the evening. This was someone different, someone who was trying to grow. "You don't have to do that," Maya said politely. "I know," Mr. Grant replied, "but I want to. You taught me something life never could, not even with all my money. Let me do something good in return, not to erase my mistake, but to learn from it." There was a quiet pause. Then Maya nodded slowly. "If I accept your help." "I want one thing in return," Mr. Grant blinked. "Anything," Maya smiled kindly. "Promise me you will never treat anyone the way you treated me today. Not a waiter, not a cleaner, not a stranger. No one." Mr. Grant's eyes softened. "I promise." And this time it was a promise he meant. Sarah wiped her tears with a tissue. "I don't know about you all, but this night changed me." Ben chuckled even as he sniffed back emotion. "Yeah, I'm never underestimating anyone again. For all I know, the dishwasher might be a rocket scientist." Everyone laughed gently, the tension lifting at last. Maya turned to her co-workers.